Greetings and welcome to America in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, executive editor of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today is the Center Square's Washington, D.C. bureau chief, Casey Harper. How are you, Casey?
Doing well, Dan. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. Casey, we're recording this on Friday, September 29th. Earlier this week, Republican presidential hopefuls held their second debate, minus, again, former President Donald Trump, who is far and away the front runner in the race at this point. Of course, former President Trump facing dozens and dozens of charges, both federal and state, after 4 indictments this year. This is really a race for second place, at least at this point, according to polling. Casey, you covered the debate. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I did cover the debate. It was chaos, Dan, and I know you watched it as well. The debate it devolved quickly into chaos when one candidate kind of just bowled over the moderator and just got to insert basically their answer on something. I believe it was North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. And when he got away with that, that was like the moment when everyone else said, well, hey, I'm going to get my word in too. He got to answer a question that he wasn't asked. And from then on, it was total chaos. They were talking over each other. Sometimes for, a solid 15 seconds of just incoherent as multiple candidates talked over each other. If anyone watched the debate, they're very familiar with what I'm talking about here. And so I think, we can talk about different moments in the debate, but overall, I think when things like that happen, Republicans all kind of lose out. They're all losers, really. Everyone loses the debate when it descends into that level of chaos. And as you said, they needed some kind of breakaway, incredible moments to even get to chip away at the sizable lead that former President Donald Trump has. Real Clear Politics polling average, where they look at different polls, has Trump at about 56-57% support. Second place, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at 14 or 15% support, somewhere in there. And then businessman Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley, they are about 5 or 6% roughly tied. So
huge gaps.
And unless Trump ends up in jail, I don't think that anything's going to change. Although it's increasingly looking like Trump really could end up in jail. So interesting debate. I'm curious if you felt like there was a winner or a loser. It's hard to pick that out of those things, but did anything like that?
I saw one analysis that I thought was, I won't say spot on, but I'm sure many voters, Republican voters across the country, could have thought the same thing, and that former President Trump won the debate just because of how chaotic it was, even though he, of course, was not on the stage. Casey, you and I were texting each other during the debate, and my thought was, why do the moderators just not shut off the mics when they start talking and shouting over each other? Obviously, viewers can't get anything out of that when you can't hear what they're saying. And at one point, one of the moderators referenced, "Hey, if you keep doing this, I'm going to shut off your mic, and you don't want me to do that. Why not? Do it."
Yeah, I think by the end of the debate, they started to do it. The beginning or first 30 minutes, first hour, they did not at all. And it was chaos. I think towards the second hour, they started selectively either turning. I think they were maybe turning people's mics down so you could still hear them, but it wasn't overwhelming the other person. So I think they finally, they went to a commercial break and huddled up and changed their game plan. But you're right, that first hour was basically unwatchable. There was definitely, we talk about big moments. Nikki Haley was pretty aggressive. She's a former ambassador to the United Nations and a governor in her own right. She was pretty aggressive. She went after Vivek Ramaswamy pretty hard. She blasted him for having a TikTok account. She's really wants to position herself as tough on China. I wrote a story at thecentersquare.com how she called for no pay for lawmakers, Dan, if they don't pass a budget on time, which is probably unconstitutional, but one of those kind of policy proposals that got a little bit of attention. She also had some back and forth with Senator Tim Scott, who I thought had a pretty good debate. The other thing here, setting aside some of the big moments, so I'd love to hear moments that stood out to you, is is anyone here running for vice president, Dan? Because that is, it's interesting to see who is attacking Trump and who's not willing to. I mean, Chris Christie is basically making his campaign on attacking Trump. Vivek Ramaswamy is making his campaign on supporting Trump. So I was curious, who do you think is positioning themselves for vice president, or were there any other big moments you wanted to highlight?
Well, certainly, I think going back to the first debate, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy has been nothing but praising former President Trump. So he, of all of the candidates, he's the only one that I think of who would accept a vice presidential nomination. I could be wrong completely about that. Certainly, Christie would not. I don't see it. DeSantis finally, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, finally went on the attack against former President Trump in this debate. And I think he needed to do that to separate himself. At one point, most polls and many considered DeSantis really the only challenger that could topple Trump, but he's kind of plummeted in the polls since that first debate. So he needed to make his presence known in this one. And I think he kind of sort of did that, but I don't think he did anywhere near enough to close the gap between his Trump. But even DeSantis, I would not see him accepting a vice presidential bid from the former president. Certainly not former Vice President Mike Pence, who already served 4 years as Trump's vice president. No way Trump would pick him, but no way would Pence accept it. So I guess the only one I think, maybe Tim Scott. Maybe Tim Scott's a second one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to throw in. I agree with your assessment. I would just throw in Tim Scott. I think is positioning himself well to be a top vice presidential pick because he has a lot of the qualities that Mike Pence had. He's known as kind of a faith, I don't know what you'd call him, but a big place with the faith community. He's outspoken about his, Christian faith. He talks about it a lot in his support emails and things. He's also, a little bit more gentle, I would say, has that kind of gentle side that Pence had. And of course, he is African American, which has its own benefits in politics when you're trying to create a diverse coalition. Trump and Tim Scott together. That's something that could be seen as an asset for sure for Trump. But yeah, I think most of these candidates have not positioned themselves well. But I think it's interesting that Tim Scott, I don't think I saw him attack Trump once at this debate, and I think that could be pretty strategic.
Yeah. Interesting conversation, Casey. At least our listeners can understand what we're saying because we're not talking over each other as the... Yeah,
then one more thing. Yeah.
Thank you for that bit of closing humor, Casey, if that's what you call it. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com, but we are out of time. For Casey Harper, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.